So I was raised by a teacher, but not just any kind of teacher, a hippie teacher. So this made growing up really interesting. Most little girls would boast about going to see Michael Jackson and Madonna. Not me. My mom took me to see the Grateful Dead. Yeah. My mom would often talk about how her teaching background really helped her throughout her life and parenting. When I was an infant, she would make data charts to track all the different milestones. How long could I keep my head up? How long could I sit up unassisted? How many times in a day I could roll over independently? This is probably where my fierce competitiveness came from. But aside from that, there was really only one area of my life where my mom's hippie teaching kind of caused me to change directions in my life. And this was a subject area that everybody in this room has had. For some of you, it was your favorite subject, and for some of you, it was the most terrifying. That's right, sex education. From the time I could learn how to speak, my mom told me to use anatomically correct names. So in elementary school, when all my little friends would giggle about talking about their wee-wees and their hooties, not me, I'd proudly proclaim that I had a vagina. It was about this same time that I discovered in the laundry room closet a book. It was called The Joy of Sex. You know it. And this book really terrified me and really intrigued me all at the same time. And of course, my mom found me reading it. But unlike any normal parent, instead of being horrified that her daughter found this, she used it as an opportunity to educate me. Probably the only person alive who learned about sex and Kama Sutra at the same time. Then I was about 10 years old, and my mom decided to talk to my sisters and I about where babies came from. Up to this point, I knew what sex was, but I hadn't really made the connection that sex led to babies. And on top of all that, my mom was a single parent, and there was like this smattering of boyfriends throughout my childhood. So when she presented us with the book, Where Did I Come From?, there were two thoughts that ran on constant replay in my pre-adolescent mind. Number one, was Mom gonna have another baby? Gross. And two, was I really gonna look that frumpy as an adult? The answer's yes. And this book became legendary in my family. We'd sneak it up to Washington, D.C. for the family Thanksgiving, and we would show my cousin and all of her neighborhood friends where babies came from. Pretty soon, I started having boyfriends of my own, and I was a senior in high school when I had my first serious boyfriend. His name was Josh, and he and I met at a summer camp that we both worked at. Yeah, I know, it's very Deanna Carter, strawberry wine, whatever. But Josh lived in a city that was about 3 hours away, so we really only saw each other about every few weeks. And my mom could tell that things were getting serious because, well, one, it was the huge telephone bills, pre-cell phone. Huge telephone bills that added up. And then there was also this regular mail delivery of love letters that were doused in Tommy Hilfiger cologne. Doused, just awful. So she sat me down and she decided to tell me that, when the time came, no questions asked, she would take me to the doctor and she'd get me on birth control pills. But what that really meant is that gave her permission to talk to me about it every single time I visited my boyfriend. Eventually, I started lying to her about it and was like, no, we hadn't done the deed yet. But then there was this one particular afternoon, Sunday, and it was about May, and I came home from visiting my boyfriend for the weekend. And my mom was sitting on the front porch, and she kind of summoned me over to talk to her before I went inside. And after all the usual pleasantries, she just got right to it. She was like, so, did you have sex? Now in my head, I'm freaking out because, I didn't really want to lie to her anymore about this. But, did I really want her to know what had happened? So in a split second, I made up my mind and I said, all right, I'm just gonna tell her. And my face, as bright red as it could get, I answered with a simple yes. Now, any normal parent out there would have had a speech prepared for their 18-year-old daughter who had just said, "Oh, Mom, I've had sex." You know, it probably was something about, did you take your pills every day? Did you wear a condom? And if some of you more conservative parents probably would have said, like, you know, there's this thing called abstinence. But let's not forget who my mom was. She was a hippie. So without skipping a beat, my mom said, "Well, did you climax?" Right there on the front porch for all the neighbors to hear. I died. If it were a thing, I would have said, "I can't even." But instead, I ran off the front porch, and just as I was about to slam the door, my mom yelled out, "Well, if you're gonna have sex, I want you to enjoy it." Mary Kate Krippenstapel was a huge supporter of the Moth. She came to every single one of these. She probably would sit right over there. I've been thinking about telling this story for about 2 years now. And in December, my mom was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And on July 21st, she passed away. But it's only been about 2 months since she's been gone, and she's really teaching me something every day. How to grieve, how to let go, what life looks like without her in it. And if she were here today, she'd be so proud. She'd be talking about how I was sitting here talking about her progressive parenting. Because once you're an educator, you're always an educator. Thank you.